guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. আজি মই ক্লাছ 9 বি হাইভ বুকৰ প্ৰথম লেসনটো পঢ়িবলৈ গৈ আছো। লেসনটোৰ নাম হয় The Fun They Had। বলক আৰম্ভ কৰোঁ। Before you read, the story we shall read is set in the future, when books and schools as we now know them will perhaps not exist. How will children study then? The diagram below may give you some ideas. In pairs, discuss 3 things that you like best about your school and 3 things about your school that you would like to change. Write them down. Have you ever read words on a television or computer screen? Can you imagine a time when all books will be on computers and there will be no books printed on paper? Would you like such books better? Margie even wrote about it that night in her diary. On the page headed 17 May 2157, she wrote, "Today Tommy found a real book. It was a very old book. Margie's grandfather once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him that there was a time when all stories were printed on paper. They turned the pages, which were yellow and crinkly, and it was awfully funny to read words that stood still instead of moving the way they were supposed to on a screen. And then when they turned back to the page before, it had the same words on it that it had when they read it the first time." "Z," said Tommy, "what a waste. When you're through with the book, you just throw it away, I guess. Our television screen must have had a million books on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away." "Same with mine," said Margie. She was 11 and hadn't seen as many telebooks as Tommy had. He was 13. She said, "Where did you find it?" "In my house," he pointed without looking, because he was busy reading in the attic. "What's it about?" "School." Margie was scornful. "School? What's there to write about school? I hate school." Margie always hated school, but now she hated it more than ever. The mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she had been doing worse and worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the country inspector. He was a round little man with a red face and a whole box of tools with dials and wires. He smiled at Maggie and gave her an apple, then took the teacher apart. Maggie had hoped he wouldn't know how to put it together again, but he knew how all right, and after an hour or so, there it was again, large and black and ugly, with a big screen on which all the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. That wasn't so bad. The part Margie hated most was the slot where she had to put homework and test papers. She always had to write them out in a punch code they made her learn when she was 6 years old, and the mechanical teacher calculated the marks in no time. The inspector had smiled after he was finished and patted Maggie's head. He said to her mother, "It's not the little girl's fault, Mrs. Jones. I think the geography sector was geared a little too quick. Those things happen sometimes. I've slowed it up to an average 10-year level. Actually, the overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory." And he patted Maggie's head again. Maggie was disappointed. She had been hoping they would take the teacher away altogether. They had once taken Tommy's teacher away for nearly a month because the history sector had blanked out completely. So she said to Tommy, "Why would anyone write about school?" Tommy looked at her with very superior eyes. "Because it's not our kind of school, stupid. This is the old kind of school that they had hundreds and hundreds of years ago," he added loftily, pronouncing the word carefully. "Centuries ago." Maggie was hurt. "Well, I don't know what kind of school they had all that time ago." She read the book over his shoulder for a while, then said, "Anyway, they had a teacher." "Sure, they had a teacher, but it wasn't a regular teacher. It was a man." "A man? How could a man be a teacher?" "Well, he just told the boys and girls things and gave them homework and asked them questions." "A man isn't smart enough." "Sure he is. My father knows as much as my teacher. He knows almost as much, I betcha." Maggie wasn't prepared to dispute that. She said, "I wouldn't want a strange man in my house to teach me." Tommy screamed with laughter. "You don't know much, Maggie. The teachers didn't live in the house. They had a special building and all the kids went there. And all the kids learned the same thing. Sure, if they were the same age. But my mother says a teacher has to be adjusted to fit the mind of each boy and girl it teaches, and that each kid has to be taught differently. Just the same, they didn't do it that way then. If you don't like it, you don't have to read the book." "I didn't say I didn't like it," Maggie said quickly. She wanted to read about those funny schools. They weren't even half finished when Maggie's mother called, "Maggie, school." Maggie looked up. "Not yet, Mama." "Now," said Mrs. Jones, "and it's probably time for Tommy too." Maggie said to Tommy, "Can I read the book some more with you after school?" "Maybe," he said nonchalantly. He walked away whistling. The dusty old book tugged beneath his arm. Maggie went into the classroom. It was right next to her bedroom, and the mechanical teacher was on and waiting for her. It was always on at the same time every day except Saturday and Sunday because her mother said little girls learned better if they learned at regular hours. The screen was lit up and it said, "Today's arithmetic lesson is on the addition of paper proper frictions. Please insert yesterday's homework in the proper slot." Maggie did so with a sigh. She was thinking about the old schools they had when her grandfather's grandfather was a little boy. All the kids from the whole neighborhood came laughing and shouting in the schoolyard, sitting together in the classroom, going home together at the end of the day. They learned the same things so they could help one another with the homework and talk about it. And the teachers were people. The mechanical teacher was flashing on the screen. When we add frictions 1 by 2 and 1 by 4, Maggie was thinking about how the kids must have loved it in the old days. She was thinking about the fun they had. Thank you for listening.